Can the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go 2-0 in the division against a very heated rival? Let's talk about it. Shout out to Sleeper, by the way. More on them a little bit later on in this video. Today, we're talking about the Bucs versus the New Orleans Saints. The Bucs are coming off of a pretty grimy, disappointing loss versus the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football. They now play the Saints at 4:05 p.m. on October 20th. This is still a very good Bucs team, in my opinion, okay? I know they had the flub versus the Detroit Lions. Honestly, it feels like an outlier to me. I mean, you've scored 20 plus points per game on offense every single game this year besides that matchup. So really, I feel like the offense will be able to bounce back, especially, whereas the defense honestly didn't play that bad in the game, in my opinion. Baker Mayfield is still putting up very, very good numbers. He is still looking like an MVP caliber candidate. You're going to have Rachaad White as your starting back still. He's been doing some good stuff this year, averaging, 3.9 yards per carry, which isn't great, but also isn't terrible as well. Of course, you're still going to have your leading receiver in Emeka Egbuka and your second receiver, Sterling Shepard, available in this matchup. I mean, this is in terms of stats, by the way, not depth chart. But Egbuka would still be like the wide receiver 3 on this depth chart, in my opinion. So, you still have Egbuka going out there. You're still going to have Shepard available. Cade Otton is still going to be available as well. You've also got, really exciting rookie Tez Johnson in there with Egbuka as a really exciting wide receiver duo. So for the Saints, they are another team that has been struggling this year. They're 1-6 right now, scoring 17.9 points per game. That's 29th in the NFL. For reference, the Bucs are scoring 24.9 points per game, which is 13th in the NFL. They're allowing 26.6 points per game. That's 27th in the NFL. The Bucs are allowing 25 points per game. That's 22nd in the NFL. So more similar on defense than on offense, in my opinion. But Doug Nussmeier is the offensive coordinator here. Brandon Staley is the DC. And then you've also got their head coach, Kellen Moore, first-year head coach for them. And this has been a New Orleans Saints team that has been fighting throughout this year, I would say. I mean, they got their one win against the New York Giants where they scored 26 points. They've only had one other game where they scored over 20 points this year. That was against the San Francisco 49ers. And you kind of look at these games, and it's a one-score game against the Arizona Cardinals. It's a one-score game against the San Francisco 49ers, a one-score game against the New England Patriots. These are a couple of games that the Saints were certainly in, but you also look at that defense for them. They allowed 44 to Seattle. They allowed 31 to the Bills, 26 to San Fran, 26 to Chicago, 25 to New England. This is a chance for the Buccaneers, I think, to take advantage of a bit of a porous defense here. Let's look at some of the high-level players here for the Saints. So Spencer Rattler has honestly not looked terrible, at least in terms of statistics. 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Hasn't been playing stellar ball, but has been playing okay ball, all things considered. Of course, Alvin Kamara is still going to always be a threat with, his ability. 342 receiving yards, 1 rushing touchdown, I should say rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Kendre Miller, their backup running back, actually was placed on the IR, so he is not going to be an option going forward. But also Alvin Kamara still 123 receiving yards in the game as well. Their leading receivers are Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, both very good receivers. 440 yards, 3 touchdowns for Olave, 356 in 2 for Shaheed. Also, don't forget about Jawan Johnson, 315 and 1 touchdown in there as well. Brandon Cooks has been pretty quiet, all things considered, in his return to New Orleans. Definitely seems more of a rotational piece, if anything. So you've definitely got to contain these 3 guys, Olave, Shaheed, and Johnson, if you want to have a good chance of stopping this Saints offense. And then, of course, stopping Alvin Kamara is going to always be a huge thing as well. I do want to talk about a couple of things here on the special teams and defensive side. Firstly, Blake Grupe's been struggling this year. 20 field goals attempted, but only has made 14 so far. Now, he's missed 1 from 30 to 39. He's missed 2 from 40 to 49 and 3 from 50 plus. So that may be something worth paying attention to, is the Saints have had kicking troubles so far this year. you might see a missed field goal or two where the Buccaneers could take advantage of that, okay? On the defensive side of the ball here, Demario Davis is still Demario Davis. He's still one of the better, more underrated linebackers in the NFL, in my opinion. He leads the Saints in combined tackles and in solo tackles. But Pete Werner is having a very good season as well with 48 tackles, some quarterback hits in there. He has 2 sacks. Their lead sack artist is Carl Granderson. Very solid rotational guy for the Saints for a while, now kind of falling more into a full-time job. 4.5 sacks for him. Cameron Jordan is at 2.5 sacks. He's always going to be a problem for the Bucs. It's just the way it is, right? I don't care if he is 36, 37 years old. He's always going to be an issue for Tampa Bay. And then also 6 quarterback hits for Granderson, 6 for Nathan Shepard, which keep an eye on some of these Saints defenders. I think Baker Mayfield said it earlier this week, but like they play some pretty nasty balls sometimes in terms of getting after it in terms of injuries and stuff like that. So just pay attention to that. Jordan Howden had a fumble return for a touchdown this year for the Saints, so shout out to him for that. Kool-Aid McKinstry is still a very solid cornerback in the NFL. He leads the team in interceptions this year for the Saints with 2. He's also got 5 passes defended this year. So whenever we talk about the Bucs offense versus the Saints defense, where do I feel like they can have an advantage here? Well, given all the different types of scores that the Saints have let up, and whenever we take a look at the overall team stats in terms of their defense and whatnot, the Saints rushing defense has been pretty porous this year, the 23rd overall rushing defense this year, whereas they actually have a pretty solid passing defense in terms of passing yards and whatnot. So I actually want to see the Buccaneers rely a little bit more on guys like Rachaad White, rely a little bit more on Sean Tucker, and possibly Josh Williams in there as well. If you can get after it, really grind down this Saints defense, and then take some advantage of maybe some play action opportunities, some short passing game stuff, that seems like a very favorable strategy in my opinion. Now for the Bucs defense versus the Saints offense, I really want them to get after Spencer Rattler, force him to make some mistakes, force him to make some off throws. It's certainly possible, right? He only does have 4 interceptions this year, but I think you can certainly get after it. He's been sacked 15 times this year, so I think that you can get after him, bring him down, and force him to make some mistakes, in my opinion. And look, Yaya Diaby's looked great the past couple of weeks. I know Hassan Reddick is not going to be available in this game, so whenever we look at guys who could step up, because they haven't signed anybody, Yaya is going to have to step up. He has 4 sacks this year. You've also got, a guy the defensive backs blitz really well this year. They've done some phenomenal work. Elijah Roberts, I think, could step up. He had a sack this year. Anthony Nelson, maybe as well. He's also had a sack. Braswell hasn't registered any stats yet in terms of pass rushing stats, so I feel like that has certainly got to change. Marquise Watts will be in that mix as well as Mohamed Kamara if they do elevate him to the active roster. So I feel like one of those guys, including Yaya Diaby, needs to break out and get after a guy like Spencer Rattler, in my opinion. By the way, did both these quarterbacks, Spencer Rattler and Baker, went to Oklahoma, which is kind of fun. Kind of a fun thing there. Spencer Rattler was, supposed to be like the heir apparent to, Oklahoma having great quarterbacks. He lost the battle, went over to South Carolina. I can't remember, who did he lose the battle to? Was it Caleb Williams? It was somebody. I remember that. Maybe it was Caleb Williams. I think it was, actually. So he actually did some good work for Oklahoma in 2020, but then lost the battle, was like, okay, I'm going to South Carolina, where he was meh. So the overall history of these guys, by the way, the Saints have won 40 times out of the 67 matchups these two teams have played each other. Now, the last 2 matchups, the Bucs have won. They won on January 5th, 2025. They won October 13th, 2024. Before that, the Saints won in 2023. The Bucs won earlier in 2023, and then the Bucs also won in 2022 and again in 2022. So the Bucs have won 5 out of their last 6 matchups with the Saints, okay? Before that, it was a lot of Saints wins, okay? But 5 out of the past 6 times, the Buccaneers have won. So we're going to have to wait and see if their winning ways continue, everybody. But what do you think? Do you think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be able to win this game? It is away, and it's never easy to play these games away. But I do think the Buccaneers have a very good chance, so let me know. One more thing, everybody. Shout out to Sleeper, the proud sponsor of this channel. If you guys do use the code MrBucs, you will get a 100% match up to $100. Again, that is whenever you use the code MrBucs. Also, whenever you guys sign up, just for free, you get $20. It is as simple as that. So make sure you go sign up today. Enjoy football the way it was meant to be. That is together. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed. As always, I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.